Welcome to a Dojo Pod episode. We haven't had an episode in a while. We've been traveling a lot, a lot of life happening. Markets have been great to us. So I think it's a good time to be releasing a podcast episode. Yields are fantastic. I mean, right now on Pendle, you can just go there and get 10 to 15% fixed on things that expire in September and August. Hyperliquid is having all of these protocols that are doing airdrops, and rumors have it, we'll look at one of them soon, that some of these protocols will be copying Hyperliquid's approach to airdropping, which could mean like a 31% FDV airdrop. So that's exciting. Tokenized points making a comeback, in my opinion, on Rumple. The markets are heating up. Are we at 120 right now? We're close to 120 again on Bitcoin, which is wild. I think last time we had a podcast, we were, just breaking 100K for the 75th time. ETH on an insane tear. And luckily ETH rising is typically something that leads yields. So some good funding rate plays there. Actually, that's kind of where I want to start, which is markets pumping. Who are the major beneficiaries? So we had previous episodes in the past where we talked about volatility when we were in like crazy choppy crab markets, and then JLP was one of the major beneficiaries, and so we're like CPVs, counterparty vaults. But now markets are pumping, markets are bullish. On the yield landscape, who do you find are the major beneficiaries?
It's a great question. I mean, first of all, it is a wild time, right? Like, we've seen all these Bitcoin as of the time of recording is at 19,500, which is just an insane number to think about. Considering we were starting this podcast
119,500.
119. Yeah, that's where my head's at. Is like, I think when we were
Bitcoin crashed by 80%.
At 19,000. Yeah, and ETH has done phenomenally well. Sol has done phenomenally well. I think one big winner, honestly, is Pendle. You kind of mentioned this with like the PTs. Like, people are willing to
Pendle always wins
more on yield, right? Like, people are willing to take a punt more on points if like we're going to see TGs happening quicker, higher valuations as these tokens coming out. So people are willing to punt more on the YTs, which has kind of been
one of the major wins recently was USDS, the PT over there, because Spark, the token, is now at like a $700 million FTV.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all it kind of needs, is a few people to win on YTs to kind of get that excitement and animal spirits back into like the speculative market on that side. And like for a while, it felt like all these PTs were essentially just trading at like, between 7 and 10%. And that was like it, because like no one wanted to punt on anything higher. And now we see all sorts of crazy stuff, right? Like XUSD 16%. I mean, that's got $86 million. I guess that's only 8 days. So that's not super representative.
But we're looking at like the top 10. The top 10 are all over 14%.
Yeah.
And if you look at the top 10 over 20 days, 43 days or more, 13 to 15% is fantastic. Now, someone in my comments yesterday was like, well, what? It was Mike from EtherFi. And then someone sort of parroted him. They're like, what are all these, stablecoin? You can't even tell what they are. This just reminds me of Anchor. And first of all, no, not even close to Anchor. None of these are algo stables. And if you can't differentiate between algo stable and literally any of these, you just don't deserve the yields. Like, be scared and go, I don't want to be like mean, but if you compare every single stablecoin yield to Anchor and look not at all into the backing mechanisms or like how the yield is generated, then you don't deserve the yield. Like, go be scared is what I would say. But the really cool thing about Pendle is that if you click on these eyes, it tells you what's going on. So like USN, for example, this is Noon. If I remember correctly, you can click on the eye and it tells you it's pegged 1-to-1 to the dollar, created by Noon. It does not earn yield, but has a huge multiplier on points. So really here, this PT is on the point speculation. So you're getting the fixed rate. And then they typically do have more information on it. So there's there's a PT marker on Euler, which is great. They can take you to the website, which is fantastic. They show you insolvency risk, operational risks. So I like this a lot. Like AIDAUSDC. What the heck is that? You click on it. It's a receipt token from Gaib. Gaib, we talked to them recently, is like an AI-based compute-backed protocol. But like, you can go to the website, you can check them out. And so if you're looking for a TLDR, just click the eye and then go to the website and check them out. Like, you don't have to be living in confusion. Pendle makes it super easy to do at least basic diligence to see where the yields are coming from. I don't know. That was a little bit of a rant because someone got on my nerves yesterday in a thread.
Well, one thing I wanted to just ask you about, this is an asset I think you know more about than I do, but the most appealing out of this kind of list that I'm seeing here is actually XUSD. 64 days. That's like a pretty good duration. Like that's enough time where you can actually like
couple months,
quite a bit of yield there. You get 14.71%. So that's like kind of like an ROI.
So more than 2% ROI in 2 months. Yeah,
exactly right. So I know that this is Stream Finance, but I'm not super familiar with them as a protocol. Do you mind just giving us a quick little TLDR?
Yeah, I mean, a shout out to Caleb, also known as 0x Law. Hopefully he doesn't mind me doxing him. I think he's well known in this space. His TG handle is, at least. So basically, he spun up this protocol. Good, nice protocol. It's basically like a basket of yields that he's farming. He's farming a variety of yields, and he's also getting boosts from his partnerships on that TVL. With those deals, there are a few exotic things, like a few of the things backing XUSD are like under collateralized loans to market makers. And so basically they take on the junior exposure. So if they have losses, it comes out of their own funds, not the funds that he is lending to them, but they're targeting really attractive APRs. So this is one of the more exotic ones, I will say, but it, as a result of that, targets a really attractive APR. And as far as I know, so he has announced a points campaign. Previously, the points campaign wasn't launched. I think they're going to retroactively give points to anyone who's in the YTs before, similar to what Falcon is doing. So it's effectively a basket of yields underlying XUSD, generating, I think we can look at the dashboard. It says 18%, but if you look at the actual dashboard, it's probably somewhere closer to 12%, plus these like points campaigns it's participating in, which should push it up there. Right now, XUSD actually getting 14%. So you're getting the points for free, which is kind of crazy. I also happen to know that Stream is highly aligned with the hyperliquid narrative, meaning they want to do a big distribution, start off with a low FDV, and then climb sort of organically through market making. How that actually plays out, who knows? I would like to see XUSD more composable. I think it's on Silo as well as Euler on Sonic, which is a weird chain to be on, but hey, they just have their airdrop. So kudos to anyone who farmed that. It's a good time to be delta exposed to stuff. So hopefully the S token takes off a bit. But yeah, I mean, so that's XUSD in a nutshell. They have XBDC, XETH. I'd like to see way more composability on those two because those are a lot more vanilla in the strategies that are underwriting them. Yeah. And so that's, I guess, sort of where we are in the landscape. Do you know anything about REUSD? This was another one that I was thinking, it reminds me of REUSD, but it's not, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's REXYZ. Okay.
Yeah. I thought this was what's the protocol that just got exploited
Resupply.
Recently?
Yeah, I thought it was Resupply too.
Yeah, but it's not that. So I don't know. That's a really
but interestingly, it is backed by collateralized insurance programs. so I don't know if that was like an intentional thing or not. But it's also, I guess exposed to insurance. There is just so many of these out there. And so the point is not for us to go through each one of them and kind of explain them to you, but the point is to say, on Pendle, you can do diligence. They make it easy for you. You don't have to wonder what these things are. You don't have to ape blindly. And I think one of the really cool things about Pendle, so you were saying that Pendle's a beneficiary. I think that the other obvious beneficiaries of the bull run are Basis. Like anyone backed by Basis is killing it. So like Resolve right now, RLP, 7-day APR, 24%, 30-day APR is probably similar, 15%. Yeah, that's an incredible yield, even for their junior tranche. And then their 7-day on the senior is 12%. That's nuts. I think even Athena was up to 10% on SUSD. Maybe I'm overshooting that, but I think that's just about right. So they've been major beneficiary. But on top of that, LPs. I don't know if we talked about this last episode, but LPs have come to Morpho, and not just any LPs, but specifically Pendle LPs. And this gets exciting. Now, unfortunately, we haven't seen the liquidity bootstrap that obviously I think we're all anticipating. Where's Morpho mainnet? Here we go. But have you checked this out yet? Have you checked out any of these? Oh, go to borrow. Any of these Pendle LPs on Morpho?
Yeah, I think some of them are very interesting. I mean, especially if you're trying to, kind of like earn a yield and get the speculative upside of points. I think that this is very attractive. It used to be kind of like leveraging up PTs was the name of the game. And I'm thinking more and more that this will actually be a kind of growing demographic because you have a lot less of the volatility in terms of like the price of a PT that can go up and down. And so if you have to, pretty much if you're leveraging up a PT, you're going to stay in it till the end because you don't want to have to like market, sell, or try to like get out of a big position. But the borrow costs can change on you a lot, right? And like that's a bit of a scary piece. The nice thing about the LPs is you can enter and exit with very, very low slippage, especially if you click that keep the YT portion there and you're actually willing to hold the YTs. you can essentially exit and enter and exit with very low slippage and cost. And so if, for example, the borrow cost does shift on you, it's much easier to get out. Whereas with a PT, there is this kind of inherent risk that you might have to get forced out at a less favorable price.
Right. Yeah. Well, also if you're aping in with, I mean, you know, because there's not enough liquidity, you can't really ape with size, which I think is probably to the benefit of the end user here. But if this narrative does catch on, and then you're trying to, buy a ton of the LP token through purchasing the PT, you can actually have an impact on the IY, which gives you a less favorable overall price on your LP like entrance. So using this keep YT mode prevents any impact on the IY. So you're kind of sort of locking in the IY into the LP. You're just going to like sort of spit out some of the YT that you'll be holding at that IY. So you're spitting out let's say $100,000 here. If you were to bring in $100,000, you're going to end up getting $230 of the YT, which, is assuming a 12% APY on all of those points. Now, the interesting thing about these points, this is the one I was looking at, is you're getting 50x sats on this. Now, if you're getting 50x sats on only the SY, by the way, so if you go down and scroll down here, you're seeing it's like 67% of the pool. So you're getting 50x sats on 67% of the pool. That's 2/3. So 2/3 of 50. Oh gosh, who can do that? 2/3 of 50. That's like 30x sats overall. So 30x sats on your notional. You get those points and you get the 5.3% yield because you don't get any boost from Pendle. So you're getting 5.3% plus 30x sats. And then you can leverage that, where was it? Right here against the 3.88. So, I mean, quick math, right? At 10x leverage, 10 times 5 what was it? 5.3? 5.3 minus 9 times 3.8. 3.8.
You're actually also missing the PT yield as well, because PTs makes a portion of the LP and you're getting that as an additional yield.
Yeah, but that's included in that number, that 5 point whatever.
Was it? Will you just go back to that for a second?
PT yield.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so that's not including any of the swap fees. Got it. Right.
But that's a starting APR of 18%, right? You're starting at 18% with just the looping. And then we know that these points are valued at 12% or 12.5% for 50x sats. So 30x sats, roughly 2/3 of that is 9. So 9% times leverage. That's another 90% APR from the sats. Yeah. Of course, those are the sats, and there are points that have to eventually be realized in the future. But that's crazy.
It's a great way of having a positive carry trade, meaning that you're actually earning a real yield while also being able to speculate
the points. Exactly right.
Exactly right. That's why I like them. I think that they're very interesting. I also hope it means that there's more and more liquidity on the Pendle markets, which means people can enter and exit PTs at size, which is just, I think, only a good thing. So I am definitely kind of in favor of this. It is kind of interesting to me that this says wrapped LP EUSDE, but then it has a picture of like the Tether logo there as well. Like this isn't actually an LP where Tether's involved at all, right? Or
No, this is just because you're borrowing USDT.
Borrowing USDT. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Yep.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird thing to borrow, but not really, because USDE is redeemable institutionally into USDT. So I guess it kind of makes sense they would have USDT as the underlying. Who is? Oh, K3. Cool. Yeah. So K3 and Pendle Lend. Oh, Pendle Lend. Interesting. They have their own curator. Or it's a sub curator of K3. I can't tell, but that's cool. So, that the cool part is really good borrow cost, really great yield, amazing potential points yield. And, it's Athena, so there's already a token. It's not like you're waiting for the token. You kind of know when the airdrop's going to happen. That's makes the airdrop a lot more real and a lot less like this thing that's going to happen in some indeterminate future. The bad part is not a lot of liquidity. And so what you can do is you can go to the kink rate and say, well, what does it look like at a high utilization? And, the bar rate can go up to 16% and kind of tear you to shreds. So do keep that in mind. I have seen this particular pool be consistently fed, but someone goes in there, apes it all, and then K3 decides to stop feeding it. All of a sudden you're at a super negative carry. So even with these kinds of positions, I would say enter trepidatiously or not aggressively. Loop it manually. Don't ape in crazy, and make sure you're not spiking the utilization too wildly, or else you're going to run yourself a negative loop. So really, check out the LPs on Morpho and leveraging them. Don't ape into them without looking at, utilization rates or doing your diligence ahead of time, or like looking at what it costs to exit. Cause it's like a 5 to 17 bip. BIP, not percent, BIP hit to exit most of the US Athena products back into USDT. So you have to sort of take that into consideration unless you just don't mind being exposed to Athena forever, which some people don't. So that's kind of my LP excitement in a nutshell.
But I will also just reiterate that it is easier to exit these than it would be like a PT. It's more of a predictable exit than it is for PT. So
if you're exiting before expiry.
Right. Don't like ape into it. Don't spike borrow cost. Don't do all these things Steven just said. But I do like it because it is, potentially more liquid or easier to exit than a PT might be.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I wanted to talk about everything. So the big airdrop in the room, or like the big thing that people have been talking about recently, has been Hyperbeat. Hyperbeat has, I think this is, it's the largest TVL product right now, has $60 million in Hyperbeat USDT, which is currently getting a 20% APR. Now, fascinatingly, I think the majority of that's coming from basis trading. So you can see here, they're directly exposed to like Resolve, unresolved products. And I think they're also running their own basis on maybe Hype directly, maybe Pump. I think they were doing the Pump basis.
There was a period where the Pump basis was fantastic, and I think they were in that. They probably closed it now because I think it's actually gone negative. But there was a period there of like about a week where it was an insane basis trade that you could be running.
Exactly right. Yeah. So they're the major beneficiary of that, and you're getting all these points. And so we looked into this points campaign, and interestingly, they're capping their points campaign at 51 million points. Now, if you are in the know, you'll recognize that 51 million as the same number of total points that Hyperliquid had before they did their airdrop launch. And so the suggestion here is that they may also be doing like a 31% FDV airdrop. And I would say these rumors are, wink, wink, maybe somewhat substantiated is all I'll say. If that is the case, and they're doing this really big airdrop campaign, I did some math yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. So I did some math yesterday, and this was kind of some fun math. Hopefully, can we see this? It's kind of like doing this weird blackout screen thing. There we go. So I was doing the math specifically on the value of the points, as well as math on the value of like the pre-deposit campaign for their LST, because that's getting the largest share of the points. It's getting like 20. Yeah, it's getting 20% of the total points, 10 out of 51. Is that right? Yeah. So that's 20%. I mean, it's a little bit more than 20%, or a little bit less than 20%. It's like 19%. So my estimates for that were that the like actual yield at the end of the day should be between 45% and 181%, assuming, a 20 to 40% FTV airdrop. I think it's not going to be 40%, but it's definitely going to be in the 20 to 30% range. So like this is more probably realistic. And then you have to extrapolate an FTV. So FTV is so hard to estimate. They're at $180 million of TVL now, where it's a 6-week campaign, which is a really short airdrop campaign, by the way. 6-week campaign for these points. And, a 1-to-1 ratio at 150 million TVL still gets you 45, 67% APR on your Hype, which is great, which means a 59 to 88 cent heart. Heart is the point there. Now, I am farming these points in real time on Rumple. Basically, Rumple allows you to mint these points weekly, mint these hearts, and then literally just sell them. There's not a ton of liquidity. There's only like $30,000 of liquidity. But the fact that I can farm these points and then sell them whenever I want, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. And so for me, I'm willing to sell at what may be a severe discount, almost a 40% haircut on what I'm estimating the value of the points to be in order to have the real-time APR. But if you wanted to take the other side of this trade and say, I'm actually more bullish on these hearts than you are, Mr. Baldman, you can buy these points for 30 cents per. So if you're looking at this math and saying, okay, I think, lowest bottom of the barrel FTV for Hyperbeat, which is also going to be an LST protocol for Hype. That's what their pre-deposit campaign's for. So it's an LST protocol plus a Vaults protocol. I think it may be one of the largest Vaults protocol on Hyperliquid right now. $100 million is the bare bottom. I think it's more realistically $200 million at a 30% airdrop. That would be $1.18. So you're almost going to get a 3x. You are going to get a 3x. No, you're going to get more than a 3x on each point that you're purchasing. So it's a cool way to speculate on this. Certainly, not financial advice here, but this is the math that sort of I've been doing related to this. And I think that we're going to see an interesting Hyperliquid airdrop season, not just from like Hype Season 2 or Hyper EVM Season whatever it is.
It's an interesting question if like the market is being efficient with Rumple and like they're actually pricing this at the effective price. And like if that's really the market saying we think this is going to launch closer to like a 75 or an $80 million FTV or something like that. Or if this is an inefficiency because there is, relatively speaking, not very much liquidity and TVL, and so like there is an arbitrage that can be had here. This is always
the whole point of Rumple is to sell the points. So I think there's probably more, and also, so here's why I think they're underpriced. And I'm also contributing to this, I guess, in a way, because there's this auto sell button, which as soon as the points are minted, it just sells it for you, which is a great feature for the person who doesn't care about points at all. But what it also means is there's just this massive consistent auto sell on these points. And you would think that that is always going to overtake the buy pressure on points. So, people aren't collecting these points to hold on to. If they were, they would just be in the regular, not taking on the additional risk of like going to Rumple. So I imagine they're undervalued, but by what amount, it's hard to say.
And also Pendle really kind of fed into the narrative of like a YT is like a leverage bet on like the points. And you have this like multiplicative idea that goes into this. Whereas Rumple, it's literally like you're buying a point and you're putting a specific value on it. And it feels like, you have to be doing a lot more work to underwrite that value or price that value. Whereas with like the YTs on Pendle, it's a little bit more abstracted. It's easier for the degens to kind of go and like ape this and not have to think so much about it. So
they don't have to try to calculate the APR.
Exactly right. I can see why you would say that the Rumple pricing could easily be undervaluing what they really should be.
But I mean, look at that gold yield. So HBXE, that's hard to say, HBXAUT, which is Tether wrapped gold staked Hyperbeat. I mean, you're getting, what are you getting? You're getting some, 1% APR. But if you bring it on the Rumple, you're getting 113% APR that you can sell programmatically week over week. And because of that, I mean, who's not going to auto sell that? Who's not going to auto sell their points at 100% APR on gold?
Yeah, absolutely right.
So,
same points. This is a silly question, but is it all
these are all Hyperbeat points? Yes. Okay. And so the reason why the points are different is because each one of them gets a different multiplier, I guess, or they're each getting a different percentage of that total 51 million points pot. So the pre-deposit campaign, which is staking, is getting 10 million out of the 51 million points. So it's like 19 point whatever percent. And it's capped at 25 million hype. So it's capped at roughly 110, 115 million dollars. So you can extrapolate an APR pretty easily off of that campaign. Now, I happen to know this vault's also coming on to Rumple soon. So I think it's either at the end of today or tomorrow. And even on top of that, you mentioned Pendle. Pendle is coming to Hyper EVM hopefully this week, but who knows how it's going to work out. It'll probably be live on the back end this week, but then the front end for Hyper EVM will come out next week. And then we'll get sort of two data points, right? We'll have two different data points. We'll have Rumple and we'll have Pendle that will give us maybe a better picture of where the market is pricing the value of these points.
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating to see. I'm excited for Hyper EVM kind of like having more and more useful stuff. Like for a while, I felt like there was a lot of speculation in terms of airdrops, in terms of like points, in terms of another, season 2 of Hyperliquid airdrop and these kind of like speculative pieces. I've been waiting for there to be like actual useful activities that you can do on Hyper EVM. And it feels like we're getting closer and closer to that with Pendle launching, with some of these kind of interesting speculative assets on, Hyperbeat. Felix is also very, interesting protocol as well. But yeah, I'm glad to see they're actually kind of spending some time tapping into the engine they have underlying, which is like the perps with the funding rate that Hyperbeat is doing and these kind of other components.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, why launch on Hyper EVM is a question. Just to get tailwinds from Hyperliquid's airdrop success and like the success of their token. I think that's a lame reason. But if you're tapping into Hyperliquid's funding rates, if you're doing the basis trade through Hyperliquid and returning that to the end user, I think that's a real actual reason to be launching on Hyper EVM. And man, what was that protocol? It's effectively doing the Athena trade, like effectively doing a basis trade stablecoin on Hyper EVM. Do you remember? I think we talked to them, but I forget who it was.
Yeah, I'm forgetting.
It's okay if you forgot. There's a lot. Hopefully we'll remember by the end of this. But what I wanted to point out here is that like Felix is also going to have an airdrop campaign. They are giving out 11% on their stability pools. And we have seen some people, like some real success cases on these before. I think when they first launched, it was right before the tariff news came out. And when the tariff news came out, hype plummeted to like $15 or $11 or whatever it may have been. And there were a lot of liquidations in these. As a result, people picked up hype at like $7. And like, it was nuts. And if you held that until now, obviously you made multiple X's. But the idea here is that you're either getting, this 11% APR, or if there's a liquidation, then you end up purchasing heavily discounted hype or heavily discounted BTC. So if you want exposure to hype or BTC, but you don't want to buy it and you want stablecoin yields in the meantime, I think you really can't top these stability pools. And you're participating in the Felix points campaign, which now is also on Rumple. So I was looking at this earlier. They're not estimating these points as being like, incredibly valuable, but you can take that. Oh, these are lendings. I take it back. This is not the stability pools. This is lending, but you are getting Felix points, which are currently valued at like 6,000ths of a point, or 6,000ths of a dollar. I don't know if that's right. Tens, hundreds, thousands, no, 10,000ths of a dollar. So yeah, Felix points now have a value, which is interesting. And then you can extrapolate that value. I don't know if the stability pool gets more or less of these total points, but it's just neat to see these points have value and then to sort of play with the numbers in your own mind. So you could take the value of these points, impress it upon the stability pools. If the stability pools are getting point, I'm sure they are, and then do all sorts of funny math. Now, on the front of like Felix being a bold fork, we've had a number of bold forks recently come out and say, this is how much we're committing to LPs. This is how much we're committing over here. It would take me a moment to pull those up, but it's good to see the friendly fork narrative actually taking off. So if you guys don't know, the friendly fork narrative is basically there's 20 friendly forks of Liquidity V2. All of these have an obligation to give 4% of their tokens FDV when they launch to Bold in some way, either incentivizing the stability pool on Bold or incentivizing LPs with the Bold asset. And so we've seen some commitments come out so far. But one thing kind of tangentially that I wanted to point out was this LP I found on Aura, which is Bold and then SmartX's USDN for 27.78% APR. And, the reason why I like this is because it reminds me that Aura still exists. I think Balancer and Aura have been really good for a lot of protocols to get decent, healthy liquidity, but it hasn't been a constant yield source for me. It hasn't been a place that I go to like find good yields. And so to see, Bold on there with a 27, almost 30% APR on an LP, so no leverage involved, I think was kind of hardening and made me happy to see that.
Yeah. Balancer, I think, has done was doing some very interesting stuff with weighted pools and with a number of different assets and pools. I definitely respect them and all the work that they do in terms of kind of like innovating in the DEX space. I think they even had like hooks before Uniswap had hooks, but they never seem to quite get their just desserts in terms of like the innovation that they put together. So, tip of the hat to Balancer, I guess.
Yeah, for staying alive. Actually, I was just seeing the WETH wrap staked ETH. You mentioned to me before this call, is the wrapped EtherFi ETH leveraging plan Aave dead? Can you just walk me through like what the heck is going on with the ETH borrow rates?
Yeah, if you refresh it, I think it's even higher. Like right there is saying 16. Oh, maybe that's right. 16%, 16.5% to borrow ETH on Aave. And you can see here when this reloads that it's been pretty much flat. So for you're looking at a monthly chart there of the graph, that's perfect. For the first long period of the month, like the first 3 quarters of it, it's been below 3% to borrow ETH. Very kind of consistently for a long period of time. You can even look now, you're looking at 6 month, it's very kind of consistent borrow costs on ETH. And that's why people have had just massive leverage positions where they're collateralizing wrapped ETH and then they're borrowing ETH against it. It's been great because you're getting, paid anywhere from a 10 to a 30% APR, depending on the borrow cost, depending on the price of Eigen and EtherFi and all these different factors. But it's been a very consistent yield in DeFi terms forever, right? It's been well over a year, which in DeFi to have a yield that's so consistent is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Now we have seen since I think the 16th, so it's been roughly a week, the borrow costs have shot up and it's pushing a lot of people out of this position where it's not sustainable to be borrowing at 16%. You're getting paid on your collateral, maybe a bit over 3%. you're paying 16%. So that's like your negative 13% times leverage. A lot of these positions
times
are like
leverage.
10x,
Yeah. If you can go higher than, I was going to say 20x times 16, you're paying 320%. That's over 1% per day. Yeah.
Multiple percent a day. But then there's like the other side of this coin, which is, well, how do you get out? Well, wrapped ETH is depegged. Unfortunately, I think like when I was looking at this yesterday, it was about 50 bips depegged.
Now, is that the result of this? People unleveraging?
Yeah, it's the result of this, and it's also the result of the queue to get out of staked ETH at the moment is like 18 days. So there's all of this ETH that's trying to get out. It hasn't been serviced effectively. And so there's this long period of time where people can get out. If you want to get out fast with EtherFi, you can pay a 30 bip fee to just like instantly get out. But like 30 bips is a lot. The DPEG is like 50 bips, which is even worse. You don't. Yeah, I
mean 30 bips because if you're exiting at 20x leverage, 30 bips times 20 is what you effectively are paying on your principal, which is 6%.
Yes. So you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But
right.
I do think this is an issue for, first of all, EtherFi, because there's a lot of people that are trying to unwind positions. Second of all, I think it's a problem for Aave. I mean, Aave is trying to have this narrative of like, just use Aave. It's a dependable, safe place to like, borrow assets. You can have positions open for really long periods of time, but people will feel much more nervous if, you get stuck in a position like this and you can't exit.
Like we have risk to people. This is all the result of His Excellency, is it not?
Yeah, I think it mainly is Justin Sun who's been pulling liquidity out. He had massive amounts of ETH that he had lent out, and he just keeps on taking large chunks out. I think both of wrap staked ETH, but also vanilla ETH. It's a little unclear what he's doing with it. Could be related to some of these like treasury companies are going on. I don't know. Justin Sun is a weird, wonderful man who makes up a lot of DeFi, and when he makes a move, ripples tend to start happening. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean,
Aave's been mitigating this by changing the kink rate, the RM. So I saw them do that the first time it spiked. I don't know if that was, July 15th or whatever, but they changed the interest rate model to 94%, push down the interest rate curve, and then he pulled out more, and so now we're in the exact same position. They can't keep doing this.
Right. And it's not like this on other chains. So if you go to Arbitrum or if you're on Base, like this position is still totally viable. But on mainnet, which is supposed to be kind of like the mainstay place where there's the deepest liquidity to enter and exit, and like the cheapest borrow costs, people are in pain right now. And so they've been spending a week paying anywhere from like, negative 3% to negative 13% times leverage as a borrow cost. And so, there's a real question to me if this position is kind of just going to be dead, or like, are people going to weather the storm for another few days and then hopefully everything kind of finds equilibrium?
Yeah. And so this brings back like the importance of what we call cheat looping, where you always have enough like liquid ETH or liquid dollars on the side to deleverage your position. Because if you could just pay down your debt, take out your wrapped ETH, and then either wait out the 14-day on staking or 18-day on staking period storm, or do whatever you want, right? No longer paying 320% interest rate. If you leverage your whole portfolio and you then now have to exit, now you are screwed. And so, we always recommend having a large portion of your portfolio in fully liquid positions that you can always exit to pay down your debts in these leveraged positions. And if you're not doing that, these are the kind of situations that really kind of screw you over. So I just want to like reemphasize. I know you have to go, Mara. There's a few other things I want to look at, like Katana, which is the flip side of this, where you're actually being paid right now. It's not going to show up because of course not. But Katana, you're being paid right now to borrow ETH. So almost the same exact trade, but they're paying you like 4% in Morpho tokens. And I just wanted to highlight that as a funny juxtaposition to what's going on over at Aave. Not to like put down Aave. I love Aave. They're obviously like a kingmaker. DeFi owes so much to Aave, but just like the insane difference that one person can make. So let's see if I can. Oh, actually, I have it open right here. Okay, so check this out. Wrapped EtherFi ETH, borrowing VB ETH, borrow cost net 1%, which is way better than borrow cost net 16%, or VB ETH. Yeah, a lot of these are VB ETH stablecoins. But the reason this is the case is because Katana has this really weird mechanism where every dollar that goes over, every ETH that goes over, every Bitcoin that goes over, mints a receipt against that, but then the actual ETH, dollars, or Bitcoin is then put back onto lending aggregation on mainnet and generating a yield. And that yield is then internalized by Katana. And then the VCAT mechanisms then directs that yield back towards incentivizing things so they can afford to heavily incentivize lending with that yield they're generating on mainnet on all of those sort of rehypothecated assets. So Katana is crazy aligned with Morpho, and that's kind of why we see these really, really high Morpho APRs. These APRs are not paid out in CAT tokens. Yes, you are getting CAT points or whatever these things are, but you're also getting an actual real subsidized borrow cost by Morpho tokens, which are fully liquid. The other place where this is absolutely nuts, in my opinion, is on Plume, where you're getting paid 20% to lend in wrapped Plume tokens. And there's $36 million being lent here. So plenty of space to get in there. And then you're getting negative borrow costs on N basis and N alpha. Last time I checked, N basis was 5% net. So quick math here, guys, 5% times 10x leverage is 50% APR plus, 9 times 1, we'll say, is another 9%. So you're getting almost 60% to leverage and basis. And for those of you who are scared of PUSD is now redeemable 1-to-1 for USDC, and you can mint PUSD 1-to-1 with USDC, which to me makes these a lot more exciting. Granted, there's only 2.6 million to borrow, which isn't an insane amount. But if you look at N basis or even MMEV, right? Last I checked had a yield of 12%. So 12 times 10 is 120. 120 minus effectively nothing to borrow is an incredibly insane APR. Now, MMEV does, if you have to exit it, it's going to be painful to exit immediately, but you can do a 2-day unstaking for no cost. Either way, my recommendation stays the same. Cheat loop in, take in a large notional, deposit it, borrow, and then take that borrow and go farm with it. Don't try to 10x leverage these things manually, or else you're just going to have a bad time trying to exit later on. So I think this is one of the best APRs out there for, leveraged stablecoins. It's hard to beat it. And these nascent ecosystems like Katana, like Plume, really offer these outsized returns if you're willing to make the trek to an exotic chain. So I've been, certainly enjoying the stuff happening over here. Last thing I wanted to sort of point out, maybe not last thing, but it's Avalanche DeFi Summer 2.0 has started or has been renewed. And as a result, just really didn't have Euler. Euler has a brand new set of incentives over on Avalanche. And these are all paid out in AVAX. So it's not like you're just getting Royal. By the way, Royal's been killing it. If you look at the oil price, anyone who had vested Royal instead of immediately sold it, probably 2x to their overall APR, at least. So that's been pretty nuts. But if you go to Avalanche and you just check out these borrow strategies, you'll see what I'm talking about. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to long the euro versus dollars. It would have been a good trade early on. I don't know how long I'm willing to do that. But look, I sort by liquidity. Yeah, you want at least $1 million of liquidity here. So 3.8 is pretty good. So USDC, AUSDE, the incentives are in AVAX. So you're getting paid in AVAX. It's a net 60% APR. There's 3.6 million to borrow. SAV USD, $500,000 to borrow, 56%. USDT against WETH, I don't want to short WETH. SAV USD against USDC, almost $1 million to borrow, 49%. So these AVAX incentives are making Avalanche, one of the more competitive chains again. And so what we're seeing is incentives on Plume, incentives on Katana, incentives on AVAX. It really does feel like DeFi summer, and I am certainly here for it. As a yield farmer, it is delightful, and I hope we get more of it. So I think we'll end it there. There's so much more we could talk about in the yield landscape, but hopefully we gave you guys enough to chew on for a while. Oh man, you can also look at Camino. So Camino, right? They are now, JLP, right? New all-time highs. Shout out to anyone who held JLP through the storm. And it is, it's up another 10% from yesterday, which is great. Well, no, I guess 1% from yesterday, but it feels 5.1 to 5.2. Is that not 10%? No, I guess it's not. It's 4-ish or whatever it is percent. Either way, JLP new all-time highs, people leveraging on Camino, finally getting a payoff there. And they're getting the yield, of course, of JLP, but the yield is really built into the price. Syrup USDC has a competitive stablecoin yield. I am so happy that finally we have a competitive stablecoin yield over on Solana, because for a long time we just didn't. There was nothing really that competitive over on Solana for stablecoins, at least not in the 15 plus APR percent range. Now we have Syrup USDC borrowing either USDC or borrowing USDG over there. And, relatively conservative leverage, only 5x leverage here. So it's not like you're going crazy with it. So that's been good to see. That's been really heartening. Shout out to the Syrup team for, making the bridge over to Solana. It's not an easy thing to do by any means. Yeah. And so, just hopefully you guys are enjoying the yields. Also, a major beneficiary of like the Avalanche Rush thing is Black Hole, which is their kind of the DEX they're really trying to incentivize right now, which is a V33 DEX, similar to like Aerodrome or Velodrome or all these solidly forks. The liquidity pools over there do show you single tick liquidity APRs, so don't think you're just going to go over there and get 81% APR. The cool thing is though, if you deposit and you can like set up your own range, so if you are in a narrow range, 20% APR is not bad, right? And you can always do a little bit more narrow than that if you want to. But yeah, so I'll leave it there. That's all for now. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.